Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of Greaties from the 80s, I'm going to be talking about music that I love now. Of course, I'm a child of the 60s, and I love the music from then, and I love the 70s, but the 80s is really when I connected with music. That was when I made my own choices. I didn't listen to the radio, didn't let my friends tell me what to listen to. It's what I discovered myself, and that's why I'm still so passionate about that time in music. It was so exciting, so much going on. Now, each episode of Greaties from the 80s is going to feature something different. It might be a top 10 list, it might be a focus on a particular band or a particular song or a particular album. There'll be popular bands, there'll be obscure bands. Hopefully it will bring back a lot of memories for you, or maybe even introduce you to something you missed the first time around. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Greaties from the 80s. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Greaties from the 80s, and here are 10 more fantastic albums. Now, don't think that the first 10 that I showed you are any better than these, or the second. I love all these albums equally. It's just that putting too many in a video is going to be a little bit overwhelming for most people. So we're going to start this episode off. These are 10 great albums from the 80s, and we're going to start with a band called Dirty Looks. This album here is the UK cover. The version right here is the US version that most of you will be familiar with, but this is just a fantastic, great album. It's got it's got a punk energy, but it's more of a power pop album. But it's really even more than a power pop album. I mean, there's some just great straight ahead rock and roll on there. There's a little bit of reggae. It's such an amazing album. So much depth to it. Especially for a trio. The self-titled album is fantastic. It's got things like Let Go and 12 O'Clock High and Accept Me and They Got Me Covered. Fantastic. There you can see it has bonus tracks. This CD also has their second album that isn't quite as good, but if you can track down this CD, it will definitely be worth your while. It's such fantastic, straight ahead, great guitar, pop, rock, glorious in every way. More than likely, you'll be able to find the vinyl version of this album, and it is an essential addition to any guitar pop lovers collection. Next up is an album from 1978, Blondie, Parallel Lines. What an album this is. Of course, A Heart of Glass and One Way or Another and Sunday Girl and Will Anything Happen, and of course Hanging on the Telephone, which was originally a Nerve song. This is just classic pop from beginning to end. This CD here has bonus tracks, as you can see there. It's absolutely stellar, wonderful. They have made some great albums in their career, but that is my favorite. Here's actually another version of the album that I have, and this has bonus material and a DVD as well. The next album is from 1980, and it's a band called the Teardrop Explodes and an album called Kilimanjaro. I love this album to death. Now, back in the day, I'd be reading reviews, and if it was a review of Teardrop Explodes, they'd always mention the first Echo and the Bunnymen album or the first U2 album, because they all came out about the same time, and they were kind of compared to each other back then. But this is probably my favorite of the three, and it is just absolutely amazing. Treason is in my top 25 favorite songs of all time, but this has so much stuff. This is the 3 CD edition. And this has everything that's on the American and the UK version all on one handy little package. Now, the album didn't come out in the US with this cover. It came out with that cover right there. So probably you'll be more familiar with that. But if you come across it, it's definitely worth it. Even the single disc edition, this triple disc edition, or if you're a vinyl person, buy it on vinyl. It's absolutely stellar. Now, I had a problem here for the next title. The Elvis Brothers. Now, I kept on thinking to myself, well, should I pick their first album, Moving Up, from 1983, or should I pick their second album, Adventure Time, from 1985? Well, this CD really helps with that question, because I'm going to say both of them count as one because they're both on one CD. I know that's kind of cheating a little bit, but you get both Moving Up and Adventure Time on one CD here. They're both great. The first album, Moving Up, it's a mixture. You've got some great power pop on there. You've got some great straight rock and roll. You've got some rockabilly. You've got this energy, these great hooks, this chemistry between the three band members. And then the second album, Adventure Time, which is that cover there, produced by Adrian Belew. They sort of expand upon the pop sound, and the production is more in depth, and just another great batch of songs. So the Elvis Brothers, either way you get it, if you get it on CD and get both of them, do that. But it is kind of hard to find. Or you can pick up Moving Up and Adventure Time. I recommend it, but it counts as one because it's on a CD. This next album sort of falls on the tail end of what I consider the 80s, and that's 86. And that is this wonderful album by Everything But the Girl. Now, this is their third album, I believe. The first album was more kind of jazzy. Second album was more kind of like a rootsy indie rock. And then this album here is just pure, unadulterated, great orchestrated pop, strings, and so many magnificent melodies. Tracy Thorn's voice and Ben Watt's orchestration and arrangement. It sounds like, classic Dionne Warwick or Dusty Springfield from the 60s. It is glorious. It's actually really a timeless record. If you threw this on, you would not instantly be able to tell which decade it was created in. And it is absolutely glorious, full of great songs. This here is the deluxe edition, which has a bonus disc with some bonus material. But you can find it on just a regular CD with just the album, or on vinyl, of course. This is definitely one to pick up. Next album came out in 1980. It is the third album from The Tourists. This is called Luminous Basement. This is the band that featured Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart before they formed the Eurythmics. But this is more guitar pop, more Byrds influenced, early Pink Floyd influenced. And it's trippy, it's melodic, it's garagey, it's psychedelic, it's glorious and wonderful. This is the Japanese CD, which is way out of print, and it has the UK track listing. The American album was the same songs, they just mixed them around a little bit. But The Tourists is one of the most underrated, overlooked bands of the era. Superb albums, 3 great albums. This is the favorite of the 3. There is a CD version of Reality Effect, the American version of that. And there's several greatest hits albums on CD. And also you can find the albums on vinyl. But it's highly recommended if you like guitar pop with a psychedelic edge and great melodies and hooks. Now, Pete Coombs was the main guy in the band. He wrote most of the songs. Annie Lennox does sing a song or two per album. But yeah, it's absolutely fabulous. I highly recommend it. 1983 gave us the debut album from the synth pop band from Scotland by the name of ENDGAMES. This is absolutely wonderful. If you love synth pop, that sort of influenced by some of the electro R&B stuff that was happening in America in the early 80s. The melodies are fantastic. They really don't sound like anybody else, so I can't really place it. This is kind of a not really legitimate CD. But sometimes you have to get what you can get. But this CD also contains their second album called Natural, which is far less electronic. It was inching closer to maybe like a Simple Minds type sound. But it's a very good album. But Building Beauty, the first album by ENDGAMES, is fantastic. Love Cares and Waiting for Another Chance. It's just a bunch of great singles on this, a bunch of great album tracks. Definitely check it out. Speaking of homemade CDs, sometimes you got to transfer albums yourself in order to put them on CD. Just as long as you don't sell them, I think you're doing okay. Interview Big Oceans from 79 and Interview Snakes and Lovers from 1980. I'm counting these as one because most of you haven't really heard the band too much. But to me, they kind of reminded me, remember back when people like Flash in the Pan, Sniffin' the Tears, even Dire Straits' Sultans of Swing single came out, and you really couldn't put a genre on them. They just sounded so different from the new wave stuff that was happening, yet they totally fit in. Well, that's kind of what Interview is like. They sound completely different from what was happening, but at the same time, their sound, some people called them power pop. They're certainly not power pop. They're a mixture of classic rock and power pop. You really need to hear this band to fully understand them. Great lyrics, great vocals, and the drummer Manny Elias actually ended up going on to be the drummer for Tears for Fears during the songs from the Big Chair era. Fantastic band. You're probably not going to be able to find these on CD, but definitely find them on LP. Snakes and Lovers, which is released in the US under a different album cover, and it's just called Interview over here. And then Big Oceans. Both of them are incredible. Absolutely incredible. Blanket of Secrecy, Ears Have Walls from 1982. Wow. This is one of my favorite albums of 1982. It's not quite synth pop. It's not quite new wave. It's just a mixture of everything. Incredible songwriting, incredible production. It's not overblown keyboards. It's just every song matters. Every backing vocal matters. Every tambourine shake matters. It's a wonderful album. It's really, 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 really hard to describe their sound. You need to go online and maybe check out Blanket of Secrecy, Say You Will, or Blanket of Secrecy, Love Me Too, or Remember Me and You, or Feather in My Hand. Lots of great material off this album. Now, this album is legitimately available digitally. So if you go to one of your favorite digital outlets, a remastered version of this album is available for you to download. It's not available physically, but you're definitely going to be able to get your hands on it. It is stellar. In my top 25, 50 favorite albums of all time. Certainly one of my favorite albums of 1982, and it's still a wonderful, wonderful piece of work. And then finally, on this episode of Greaties from the 80s, another 10 great albums, I got Adam and the Ants. Now, this was a weird one. When this album first came out in America, I bought it the first week because I had read something about them. And then I saw the album cover and it looked interesting. So I thought, I'm going to get that. Bought it, didn't like it. Sold it to my friend Chuck. And then the next week, I got my allowance again. I was at Licorice Pizza record store. I saw it again. I picked it up. I go, I'm going to give this another shot because Chuck likes it so much. So I went home and listened to it. Didn't like it. So I either traded it in or sold it to a friend or gave it to somebody. And the next time I got my allowance, I thought, oh, man, I know I should like this. Maybe I should buy another copy and hang on to it. And guess what? Third time was the charm. Kings of the Raw Frontier, that from this moment on, I was an Adam Ant fan. Every single Adam Ant release, whether it was with the Ants or without, was different. He's a unique artist, great songwriter, especially when he was working with guitarist Marco Perrone. This is the deluxe edition, which has a bunch of bonus material, and it's just an absolutely stellar album. Anyway, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope this inspires you to maybe check out some of this music because it really is all worthwhile. I'm not going to get on the show and tell you I love this stuff when I don't, because I do. I love this stuff passionately. And hopefully something I said here will inspire you to go out and buy something that you maybe haven't heard before or something you forgot about, but something that will certainly make you happy and bring joy and passion back into your life, especially during times like these. Well, that's it for this episode of Greaties from the 80s. I hope that you discovered something. I hope there was maybe music that reminded you of a great time in your life. And I hope it gives you a spring in your step. Now, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and to ring that bell for future notifications. And until the next time, remember me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.